Hi everyone, this is Kerry Sacco from the Rittenhouse Square Fine Art Show. I am a current board member and welcome to our 5 o'clock club. This is the first one of 2021, so we're pretty excited. I'm here tonight to do a little demo and a talk about my painting surfaces. I'm an oil painter. And my first love in the art field in my education after high school was more of like a drawing and a printmaking graphic type thing. And I had really great professors. I went to Millersville University and fell in love with oil painting, which was great. They jumped us right into oil painting. And I kind of put that on the back burner after I had graduated. And then, some years later, I decided to enroll in the Pennsylvania Academy, and I picked up on oil painting again. So I'm going to talk about some of the surfaces that I paint on. You know that a lot of painters work on canvases or boards and stuff like that. I'm going to explain why I choose to paint on what I'm painting on, my subject matter. Sometimes that influences my background, which is called the ground that I'm painting on. So, but first we're going to do like a little bit of a studio tour. My style is an impressionist style. Very realist. You know what you're looking at when you look at my work. I think that I have a pretty good grasp of light and shadow, and I push the color limits on my work. I add some text and some collage work. Sometimes you'll find bits of songs or poetry scratched in, but it all creates this like really beautiful cohesive work, whether it's a landscape, an animal portrait, a little songbird. And I just hope that tonight's studio tour will do a little bit of clarification for you. But I have a wonderful cameraman. He's turning it on himself. There's Jimmy. And if you have any questions, please, we will try to answer them. We will get to my website and my Facebook page and my Instagram, and hopefully I'll get a couple little followers from this presentation, but I just would like to thank the Rittenhouse show for doing this. We've tried to maintain our social media presence throughout the whole year. Our shows are in June and September. So we just had the deadline for our June show, which is the 4th, 5th, and 6th. And the jury's right now working on that, and hopefully we'll have answers and replies back to our artists, but we can't thank our artists enough for reaching out and applying. We know last year was pretty tough, but hey, we did not shut down. We had 2 virtual shows. We were voted #1 and #4 art show in the country, June #1, September #4. We are still going strong with our tradition, and 2021 will be our 94th year.
Renal.
Oh, hi Renal. So anyway, let's just start. This is a really great little space. We live in a 1823 very historic farmhouse. It's in Lancaster, Pennsylvania. Lancaster County is in the central part of the state of Pennsylvania. And one of the things I just really love and appreciate about this home is that the original land was granted to a member of the Brubaker family 300 years ago by William Penn. So 2 brothers and a cousin first came from Switzerland to Germany seeking religious freedom. Then they came to the United States. And then William Penn, they heard about this Quaker that was, like, sure, let's just do this. Let's just spread out. So I just think it's really wonderful to be in a really historic part of Pennsylvania. And the whole idea that people can come to the United States seeking religious freedom, and you know, we're the best of the best, and we're going to continue to be that way. So like, go USA. So anyway, this studio is an addition that was put on the original home in the 1860s. Jim, is that when?
1840s.
1840s. Oh, this was the first one put on. So it is a little brick addition. We won't go outside because it's getting dark. But we took out 2/3 of the second floor, if you can pan up there, and it provides really nice skylight up there, but also I have a little loft there with storage, flat file drawers, where I store a lot of my printmaking days work and framing supplies and packing supplies. We have a really nice little gas fireplace, which gets it all nice and cozy this time of year. I have a historic mantle that was not part of the original room, which was put in during renovation, and it looks like it just totally belongs here and is like organically growing out of there. So I just have some examples of my work and other work that I've collected, just stuff that makes me happy. I like to surround myself with really great inspirational things. This window, I don't know if you can peer out there. Across that field, way in the distance, is another farm, which is a part of that original Penn Land Grant group. It's another Brubaker property. They've been farming in the same family for 300 years, and you can't really...
Eight tricentennials in Pennsylvania.
Yeah. So it's only one of 8 tricentennial farms in Pennsylvania. So there is a barn way in the distance, and you will see that barn in my paintings here. I paint it all the time. It's beautiful. The sun rises and sun sets on it, and it's just gorgeous. So I have my wall of inspiration, just like other artists' postcards that I love, museums. Oh, that's Rembrandt, yeah. And yeah, so kind of glance at that every once in a while. These shelves here, there's Jim's happy hour. So these shelves were put in specifically to hold wet work. I asked that the 2 grooves be put in, so it's really great. I can stack paintings, or I can stack the edge of a frame in front of a painting, and it won't bother the wet work. And I have 2 levels of those shelves, and they flank my big wooden easel where I work. So that's pretty much the studio tour. It's not a huge space. The light is really great. The track lighting that was put in is pretty much natural daylight, and it just really, really works for me.
Show your coal radiators.
And show the Swiss. These are Swiss radiators. We have them vertical and horizontal. It's really nice that it is very, very low profile, very cool. Oh, that's really nice and warm. So, okay, so welcome. Here's the talk part of it. The studio tour's done. If you see any comments, Jimmy, just kind of, the reading glasses are on my...
I can read.
Okay. All right, so painting surfaces and grounds. Now, how's the light here? I can always move this table. How's it looking?
It looks good.
Everybody looks good? All right. What I choose to paint on, I work on panel or canvas. So a lot of times it all depends on size and how easy I need it to be transported. A lot of shows that I used to do were plein air shows. I don't do as many anymore, but when you are a plein air artist, you usually have your whole car packed up with your easel, your transportable easel, all of your paints. You need to have your canvases or panels already. You need to have frames already, because plein air shows you paint them, you frame the paintings wet, and you're doing it in the back of your car and whatever. So also plein air if you're traveling. So if I am taking some paints up to Maine, or if I'm going to Europe, I don't want a lot of weight in my suitcases. So that's another factor of what I choose to paint on. So one of the simplest things that I've done for plein air painting is painting on birch panels or gesso board. So gesso board comes already, it's very lightweight. I'm gonna come around here, Jim. Hold on. Gesso board is very, very lightweight. It's on like a tempered masonite, and the surface is treated with a coat of gesso. I also use birch boards. I seal the boards with a matte medium. You can seal them with shellac. You can cut them down to size. I seal the edges. And then I paint gesso. Now gesso, if I have some non-artist people watching, gesso is an acrylic bond that is usually the first coat that comes on a canvas that you buy at Michael's. It's what I paint on my boards after I have sealed them. So gesso makes it possible for then me to paint oil paints on top, and it makes a barrier, and the oil paints won't leak down into the wood underneath. Okay, so these are gesso boards, very lightweight, really popular with plein air artists, or I work on birch a lot of times if I need to be able to alter the size really quickly out on the road with a utility knife and whatever. So let's come back around to my little demo table.
Can you ask how the volume is?
Is the volume good, everybody? Yeah, volume's
I turned
good.
it up. All right.
Sometimes it's your finger underneath it.
Oh.
Yeah. So then for plein air shows, yes, that's what I do. If I am working on my little songbird series, I work on these really great little wood cradle boards. So they're 3/4 inch little cradle boards. I don't have any unpainted. But what I do is I first seal them up. I seal them with my matte medium, which is just an acrylic. I then paint a ground. So I mix my gesso, my acrylic gesso, with a little bit of a base of an acrylic latex. And I get this pink color from there. And so that creates a finish for me that accepts the oil paint in a really nice way, completely archival, but when I paint on top, I choose to scratch out a lot of song lyrics on these. So that's part of what many artists like to do is if they have a really deep color ground, you can paint like a really deep reddish brown. That's very popular. A really deep kind of yellow ochre, and a lot of artists choose to lift out and have that ground showing through, and it's just a really nice, desirable.
Why is it pink?
This is just simply pink because I like when it shows through on my paintings. When I scratch the song lyric, there's a little bit of pink that comes through when I scratch the song lyric in there, and I also scratch the lyrics into the edges. So let's get it in better light. So you can see the song lyrics, and that pink ground is showing through. And it's just a completely personal thing. It's just one of those, I don't want to say a happy accident, but it was just that I had all these little samples of paint
What?
that we were using.
What's the pigment that makes the
I'm sorry, what was the
tints
question?
the gesso? What tints the
What
gesso?
tints it? I tinted this gesso with an acrylic latex that is like a decorative acrylic latex. These are just acrylic latex color samples from different points of our house. So I did a really great workshop with Ken Oster. He was a plein air teacher, but he also got his start in LA. He was kind of in like Huntington Beach area doing kind of surfer paintings, and he did a lot of a restaurant series with chefs and the, you know, bartenders, and it was so great because he was like, get exterior latex, go to Lowe's and look for like one of those little cans that is in the oops aisle where somebody wanted a color and somebody mixed up the wrong color and they just put it in there and sell it for like $2.99. He said just paint your panels with that exterior latex and it completely gives you a great base to paint from. He had some surfaces that were like really a deep yellow ochre, and he did a lot of plein air, so. Okay, so this is the Songbird series. Sometimes I do a landscape with that pink ground, but I tend to not. I'm just now reserving it for this kind of stuff. Here's another surface I like to paint on. This is the tempered masonite. If you could paint directly on that, but it's pretty slick, and I really like to just give it a really light coat of gesso. And then on top of this gesso, I sketch out, and it's such a small surface that I don't really choose to put on like a colored ground on there. I do real transparent washes of color, and this is typically what I paint my small, little funky animal series on. So that's the same stuff. And I just like it lightweight, very durable. Everyone laughs that I'm like banging on my oil paintings, but that's what I really love. Like if you're transporting these around, you're not going to poke a hole in the back of them the way it could happen to canvases. Okay. So that's our masonite. Now, just regular canvas. So, because canvas you can buy it everywhere now, I do have the capacity to stretch my own canvases, but I just choose not to anymore. If I have an odd size, of course, yes, I'm going to stretch that canvas. But basically, I like to work in some standard sizes if I can. I go larger with my canvases when I'm doing figurative work or landscape work, depending on the depth of your canvas, and I have in mind how I want to frame it ahead of time. That's always an issue. But certainly, when I get a plain white canvas, unwrap that plastic, I never paint directly on top of that. I always take a very fine sandpaper, rub it over, and put at least 2 to 3 coats of my own gesso on top. It's just something that I do. I just think I just know how I want paint to work, and it's just something that I do. You can sand in between those coats, but it's not always necessary. So there is other surfaces in the canvas family, the cotton, of course, but a lot of people paint on linen. So to this, you can certainly add an extra layer of a colored ground to it. So you have your basic acrylic, which you need because if you paint it on the raw canvas, especially the oil paintings would go right through. You cannot paint acrylic on top of oil. So if you started a painting in oils, and then you're like, oh, I want a colored ground, and you added acrylic to that, or try to paint an acrylic scene on top, it just wouldn't work. It would repel it. Oil and water don't mix. There's other types of collage items you can use as a ground. So let's go into the light. This, you can see it up close. This is some newspaper that I've torn up and I've placed on those masonite panels. I adhere that with my matte medium, and then I paint a light coat of gesso. So what I choose to paint on this, I have a series of elephant paintings, and I think it just does a really nice job of echoing the folds and the wrinkles of the elephant portraits. I started doing them a couple of years ago. It was kind of like a yoga mentality type thing that I was doing, you know, to honor the wildlife and the spirit of the elephant. And I just really like that effect. I don't ever really want any of the type to show through. I randomly place it on there. I'm not very methodical, but I try to cover as much as the surface as possible. But other people choose to layer canvas on there, or newspaper on there, or bits of sketches that they've done, and then they paint on top of the sketches, and it just makes a really nice, it's not scary anymore. To me, a blank white canvas is just scary, and putting a ground down first really helps me with value. It helps give a little bit of vitality to the work. It gives a mood. Sometimes that's really important, especially with my landscapes that I paint. All right, here's another thing about a painting surface. So this is just simply paper. Now you can see some of the oil seeping through. But this was just something that I did when I was taking a bunch of workshops. And I have a lot of printmaking paper, which is beautiful, handmade, you know, all cotton. So I take that down to my watercolor boards. I sealed it as much as I could with matte medium, and then I layered gesso on top of it. And it just provided an even more lightweight, you know, transportable surface. It's great. And for plein air, this is totally acceptable to paint on paper like this. People, this actually, where is that? Here it is. This is actually a piece of gator foam. This is pretty expensive. It's not just your regular kind of foam core. But if you seal it right in the back and use archival glue, it's perfectly acceptable to frame that. And it is so lightweight. It's so lightweight. It's great. Any questions? Thanks for joining me, everybody. So, okay, so now...
17 watchers.
17. What time are we at? Oh, okay, it's 5:24. All right, time's a ticking. This is going so fast. Let me take you over to... First, I'm going to start here with this painting. So this is just a scene from the Poconos, and it was a very overcast day. And when I wanted to start this painting with the bright white canvas, I'm like, how am I going to, what mood do I want from this? I still wanted some lightness and brightness. So I chose to use a really pale wash of a lemon yellow, very watered down, using my thinner, my Gamsol thinner. And I completely coated this and then wiped it down and got a nice even layer. And then from there, I very lightly sketched out the scene. So what happens now is I knew that this was going to be a painting that had a lot of blues and violets, very subtle. Had that winter reds in there, yes, but I knew that I wanted a little bit of glow coming through that very, very cool paint application. So right here, you can see that yellow underpainting. And I still have a little bit more to do with it, but I'm just really happy with the way this all turned out. You can see that a little bit of that peeking through. That's just something, the way I choose to work. I kind of plan that stuff in my head. If I am doing a plein air show and I sit down, I usually have my boards already with a soft little ground rubbed into them, because if I had to wipe a fresh ground with thinner and thin down oil paint, I felt like it was muddying up my paintings too much. So I always just brought a variety of boards to any show that I did, and I had them in a gray, in a real warm yellow, a real warm rustic kind of earthy red. And if it was an overcast day, I was like, okay, I can do a painting with that. And
Somebody would like to see this painting straight on.
okay. Yes, this is that was like a winter trip to the Poconos.
And what's the dimension?
That is a 24 by 24 painting. Yeah, that's going to go into my Yellow Spring show. And so then this is really great. This is a little series of paintings that I'm doing for a historic restaurant here in Lancaster County. So they are bringing art back into their tradition. They have like change ownership. So they had an artist for the first couple months do interior watercolors of the restaurant. So what I chose to do was the surrounding farmland around Lancaster County where this restaurant is. So you do have to cross a very historic covered bridge to get to this restaurant. And so I just wanted to treat each painting with the exact same kind of ground underneath. These are the little underpainting sketches that I've done, but these are all on that gesso board that I was talking about earlier. I do have some figurative work. We'll get to that. So this is going to be fun. I'm going to finish up these 3 over the weekend, and I have about 2 more planned, and I just really like the way they are turning out. And over here, these are little Maine landscapes that I did. They're painted on board. I had primed both of these with that really pale lemon yellow. And the same for this. This is that historic farm next door that I told you about. I knew that there would be a lot of violets here, and I knew that the snow scene and the shadows would all be violet. So a lot of that is primed underneath. My ground is that yellow, that real pale lemon yellow, or sometimes I do transparent yellow oxide and get that real warmth underneath. So figurative work. This is really interesting. I just kind of did a couple of studies that were from a friend had a bunch of photo shoots that she was offering to artists during the pandemic. She and her partner had many files, so every Friday they would release some of them. There's one of my hairs stuck there. So why don't you come to the easel now? I'll show you the figurative work I'm working on. So this is a painting of my nephew, and it is for a museum show here that it has an invitational every winter. And it's the DeMuth Museum. Their invitational is always based on one of Charles DeMuth's paintings, but also the idea behind his paintings. So for this year, Charles DeMuth liked to do works from different novels during the early 20th century, but he didn't necessarily do them as like advertisements for the novel. It was just something that he wanted to do. So they asked the artist for this invitational to pick a novel and a character based on it. So we have this photo of my nephew Spencer. It was a real low light situation at Yellow Springs, and I chose, my sister actually took the photo, and I consulted with her. I'm like, what novel should this be? I have stuff in mind. So we came up with, I really like the novel Once and Future King. And so when I was little, the movie Sword in the Stone was just like, we loved that movie. And Once and Future King is actually made up of 4 stories with the Arthurian legend, and the very first part is what Sword in the Stone was based on. So I chose to, Spencer actually had a stick and an umbrella in his hand, so I'm putting a sword and a little shield in there. I'm going to add some of my text that I like to do, but you can see that ground back there? That was just simply one of those latex colors that I painted on, and I wanted a little bit of warmth showing through because it was a low light subject, but I'm going to keep this really vague in the background and, you know, just work on a little bit more detail. But this has been really fun. You know, of course it's a labor of love. And then I was going to tell you about one of my favorite painting surfaces. Let me grab it really quick. Here we go. It's the board that I had sanded off. How could I have lost that?
Is it
I'll tell
down
you,
here,
don't worry.
down here, leaning against the table?
No. So instead, I'm going to do this, Jimmy. Oh, here it is, back here. Okay, so this is my little secret. One of my favorite grounds to paint on is an old painting that I just never worked. It sat here and tortured me on my little shelves. And so what I do is I sand it down. I sand the paint that I can feel. And, you know, when it gets to the touch where I know it can accept more oil paint, I'm like, I'm just going to paint over you. I turn it upside down, and I'm like, okay, what am I going to paint on you? So before I do this, let me pull this painting down.
You were looking for that. Sharon Strine said JoJo took it.
She did. Well, I can show you, Sharon, I can show you boards that all those puppies chewed on. This painting was one of those model shoots that my friend Beth Bay had put up on her website. And I started painting this figure on top of an old painting, an old landscape. And I had completely covered all this in the background. And then I'm like, oh, and I started wiping away, and I'm like, oh my God. I wiped my fresh application of paint off here. And I'm like, oh my gosh, she looks like she's meant to be sitting in this landscape. It just was like another very cool, happy accident. So let me just show you really quick how I would go.
Watch your time.
I know, my time is 5:34. So I have my paint laid out, and you can kind of, I turn this painting upside down, and I'm gonna just start adding my approach to how I would start a whole new painting on there. Sharon, JoJo's on the other side of the gate hollering. Sure. Okie dokie. So since this is already dark, I'm going to do a little scene from Maine. You can show my computer there.
Hey, do you varnish when you're finished?
I do varnish. I start with, my painting medium is definitely better as far as the final result of my painting is pretty uniform now. I use this. I use Galkid as an oil painting medium. And when my paintings dry, I typically don't have to go back and oil them or anything like that. I do put a final varnish. If I still have the painting in my possession and it's still safe to varnish, I do a satin varnish on my paintings. A lot of times with plein air work, you can't, because if you're doing a show and it goes up in the gallery and it sells, sometimes we put a note on the painting saying like, hey, and in a year, you can call me if the painting has dried in an uneven way. So,
Mimi's on.
Oh, hi, Mimi. All right, so here's what I was trying to let you know. I'm going to do a little scene from Maine. I'm going to start just with a tree line in the background here. And it's okay to have all these little bits of red showing through. So if anyone's just joining, I am painting on top of an old painting. And that's one of my favorite surfaces and grounds to paint from.
That's what's being painted.
Yeah. I'm gonna mix. I use a pretty traditional palette. I have a lot of transparent colors. I'm gonna first try to sketch this little. So if I can quickly cover all that, that becomes like the little stream going back. This is Jordan. This is the one end at Jordan Pond, Jimmy. Probably didn't recognize it. And, you know, leaving all those little bits of that painting underneath, it's just is like so cool. Keep an eye out if Renal is popping in, okay?
Well, she's probably still on. She was on early.
No, she should be requesting to join, if you see it.
It says bring them on camera, which she did, but that was early on.
Okay.
I think I can go back and get her.
Did it say request to join?
Bring them on camera is request to join, I think.
Okay. We're trying a little experiment here.
Let me know when you want me to try.
You?
I have to hit the button.
Okay.
Reno, are you still there? Can you just comment so I don't have to scroll back?
So coming up in February, we have a couple more 5 o'clock clubs planned. I'm going to be doing an interview on
she's
on February 11th, and it's with Artreach, who is one of our outreach partners, and it's a really great organization bringing arts access to people with low income and people with disabilities, and it means visual arts, theater, museums, and their work, what they do is really, really great. Another, we're hoping to get some more of our show artists to do this. It's really fun. It's a little, stressful if you're just waiting for the technology to work. But so do you see what I mean? Like this, I would probably be taking more time, but you can quickly cover your old painting and start to see a new painting and give life to a new surface.
Wow, that was quick.
Well, yes. Speedy away day. Oh, I need a little bit. I need to get the line of that. I don't use black typically in my work. I mix my black usually is my transparent oxide yellow or transparent oxide red and my transparent or my ultramarine blue. It makes a really beautiful black. So yes, I did the 25 days of minis. It was a marathon, and grateful to everyone who tuned into that, and really, really fun. All jazzed up to work on bigger work now. Hopefully we will get back to seeing everyone in person for our June show. So our June show dates are 4th, 5th, and 6th. I am in charge of, I'm the volunteer coordinator and I'm community outreach. If anyone ever would like to volunteer, you can go onto our website. There's a little button to click and a little request for my email. It's Kerry at rittenhousesquareart@gmail.com. And yeah, we love our volunteers. And you have a lot of fun. It's a great city park, great environment. So everyone just like keep on creating and painting yourselves. I'm going to attempt a couple little painting classes here in the studio. That was my new thing for 2021. It'll be great. I used to teach, but have gotten away from that. For no other reason than I just got away from it. So I'll bring this painting back when I have it completed. Jordan Pond is in Acadia State Park in
National Park.
A national park in Mount Desert Island in Maine. We went there in the beginning of October. Very lucky to get a rental. I mean, they were just like disappearing. I think people were renting their homes to family members who might live in the city just to escape New York or something like that. It was tough. So we got this great little place, and unbeknownst to us, it was peak leaf season. So it was so crowded. But everyone on the trails wore masks and were very respectful, and it was just really great to see. All right, we're almost at 1:43. So does anyone have any more questions? You see anything scrolling through, Jimmy? Yeah, just look for some more work. KerrySacco.com is my website.
You have an interview coming up February 4th.
February 11th is I said that's
Sandy said before.
it's a 5 o'clock club. It's an interview with Artreach, Katie Sampson. She is like just one of the greatest human beings I have ever met, seriously. And you're not going to want to miss that. It'll be the same format on our Facebook page, and February 11th. And so hopefully by the end of this month, we'll get some more 5 o'clock club demos and interviews hooked up, and for your enjoyment. This should be
Sandy's saying it's the 4th, February 4th.
Sandy, it's February 11th. It's confirmed and changed.
I'm just the cameraman.
Okay.
I'm just the messenger.
Okay.
So I had that renal requesting. Now that's not showing. Oh, here, I got it.
Okay,
I can
so
try.
yeah, so I think I have another board member who's going to jump on, and we're testing out.
All right, we're going to try this.
Yeah, so I'm bringing Renal Parikh on. She's our social media coordinator.
I hit bring them on camera.
Yeah.
Ask her if anything's happening on her end.
Yeah, we'll see. So Renal is a painter. She works on canvas and she works on handmade paper also. And we were just going to talk about her approach with grounds if we can bring her on.
Bring Reno on camera. Can't bring Reno on camera. It's saying.
Yeah. Well.
Does she have Reno? They'll receive an invite.
Well, we're going to try this. We're going to experiment a little bit more with trying to bring on an interview at a later date. So everyone, thank you for tuning in. I really, really appreciate it. And I hope to see everyone in June, but please keep tuning in. Please like our Instagram page and share with your friends. And we just can't thank you enough. We were so blown away by your support last year with both our virtual shows, with our holiday pop-up show. And I want everyone to be well and be safe and take care.